So I want to take this opportunity to speak to you about something that hopefully will be of use to some of you, all of you, but certainly of use to some of you. In the opening circle, one of the elements we focused on, or some of the elements we focused on, were those things that we find our allies internally, or our friends, or our strengths. And then conversely, although sometimes they were two sides of the same coin, elements that were impediments or obstacles. And I wanted to revisit that topic area with the specific purpose of highlighting the difference between the impulse to change or to change oneself and what comes about when we attempt to change. And how that differs from, or is part of the process of, what we could call transformation. And to try and get a feeling for, or a conception of, what transformation is, if it's other than change. So one place to begin speaking about this is to go right back to Gurdjieff speaking about how people, he said man, is asleep. People are asleep. And then it raises then the question, what is sleep? And simultaneously, or concurrently, he is speaking about the terror of the situation. What does he mean when he says the terror of the situation? The terror is that we are not awake entirely. We smell this and we know this. That could be the terror of the situation. Could be, though, that is combined with that our time is limited. Now we have. But how are we within this moment now? So, this combines a bit with John Bennett's view of what goes on inside in terms of energies in the human body and human psyche, and how that relates to sleep and waking, and change and transformation. So, a simple way to begin speaking about sleep is to say, maybe I know what that means. I've read maybe in some books about identification or attachment, if one is looking at Buddhist texts, or dukkha, suffering, not fitting well in the world. One way to begin to speak about this is as if the buffer between sleep and the terror that might come if we were suddenly awake to our actual predicament is what Gurdjieff called self-calming. We calm ourselves. We help ourselves not to be awake. Because though one part of us I won't use that word wish at the moment, may aspire, may think about it wanting to be awake, maybe there are other parts of us that are attached to being asleep. Because the result, being awake, presents us with clarity that we either are or are not prepared to see. So, Gurdjieff says, we self-calm. And the last time, speaking about this, I thought the metaphor of blankets was a good one, instead of this typical metaphor of sleep. And what Gurdjieff said about self-calming was that the most typical way we self-calm is through vanity and self-love. And that means the question is for me, for you, for us. I think for each of us it would be for me. What is the role in my life of vanity? What is the role of self-love? In what ways are they creating story in myself that is very sticky? And that helps me stay asleep. Even though the self-love may be saying very positive things. The vanity may be mirroring back to me a glorious image. It's sticky image. I'm sleeping. I'm calming myself with that. And I want to go a bit beyond what Gurdjieff and Bennett spoke about and offer 2 additional blankets we pull up under our chin to stay happily self-calmed or asleep. Maybe it comes somewhat from the realm or the world of psychology and what has developed in it and from it. And we can call it simply negative self-love. Because when Gurdjieff spoke about self-love and vanity, it was inflation, being puffed up, thinking very highly of oneself. Mainly, that's what was being talked about. And I offer to you that people also are just as calmed, though it feels uncomfortable, by negative self-love. They're just as inflated or full. It just feels negative. I will never be good enough. No one will ever love me. I'll always be second best. I'll always be last. I'll never understand. That's negative. It doesn't sound like love, but it's this negative capacity to be attached to something about self. And one can be filled with this just as much as pride and vanity. And it's a calming device though it feels very uncomfortable, because it also keeps us from being awake. It gives us story that we're attached to. The third, certainly, unless I'm missing something in what I read, the third category also comes, I believe, from the world of the developments in the world of psychotherapy and treatment of trauma. And you could call it not self-love or negative self-love, but self-negation or self-erasure. And it's the capacity humans have, I think we have, to not be in touch with what's going on inside ourselves, because to be in touch would be too painful. So we can become numb to ourselves. And this is, I think, more easily seen as a calming device. Of course, I would rather not see this pain and trauma. It would be very disturbing. So I calm myself, or it's automatic, and I become numb. So, vanity and self-love, negative self-love, and negation of self. Does this ring true in some kind of way for you? That there could be in me, but in you, in you, this calming through self-love and inflation, or this calming through negative self-loving, kind of inflated but deflating, contracting, or this calming through, the term would be dissociating, numbing. So I see one person nodding. Yes. Is anyone willing to give an observation? To say something about how for you, self-love or negative self-love or self-negation, you feel like is something that operates inside you? Anyone willing to share?
I just remember one time I was to play a big music instrument, a tambura, and I'm not a musician and I have no idea how to play. And so someone showed me and he said, you just play and I play around you and nobody will know that you're a beginner. And then when we were sitting there, it was a very meditative space. I noticed very clearly that either I was totally condemning me, that I'm an idiot, I will never get it, I'm not a musician, I cannot do it, I will fail, everybody will laugh at me, blah, 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 blah. Or, when sometimes it sounds good, oh great, see, I'm an intuitive musician, far out, fantastic. And in both cases, it brought me off. So it was a constant dance on the rope. Thank God that Gopal could play so beautifully with his sarangi around it, because I could, when I was out of these two, what you said was self-love and negative self-love, when I was out of that, in these little moments, I was just playing and it sounded beautiful. And then I was swinging to the one edge and I was out, or I was swinging to the other. And there I really strongly saw how I'm constantly telling this or that, and in each way I lose connection with the reality.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, thank you. Anyone else? One more? Somebody?
When she was telling her experience, I was reminded also that I have kind of the same feelings in the movement. When I do the movement, and this morning or yesterday, I said, wow, this is my first time now, and I really pick up good, and I'm getting the flow, and so, and today when it was getting a little more complex, and I was out of tune, and I felt, So I have to go more deeper. And I was also, not so sure about myself. And this happens also in conversation sometimes with me, that I feel sometimes when I feel myself good, I'm almost above the others. When I feel not good, I'm so very low.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else?
Many times I've noticed in myself that I have in my mind what respect is for a person to be respectful. So if I don't get that behavior in my environment, my heart closes and I feel anger inside me. So it happens to me many times lately. It happened today in a moment that when we were moving, somebody made like exit to me. And I felt this again, and my heart closed, and I was suffering internally for a while. Then I tried always to forgive, and it goes. But it takes effort. It's not very comfort. And I think it's a negative thing.
Thank you. Anyone else? One more? Yes.
Well, when I was doing the movements today, there are times that I'm seeing myself doing the movements, being able to do it. Then the moment I'm doing it, there's an interpretation. Oh, I'm doing it good, kind of. And the moment I'm saying this, off, the moment I'm just losing myself. So I realize that this interpretation takes me out of in fact, being integrated and doing the situation. It's an interpretation. It's not really feeling it. It's coming from somewhere else. And
Thank you.
because, when really I'm doing it, I'm really feeling also a joy inside of me. I'm relaxed and everything goes very well. The moment I'm interpreting, I'm out of it, and it's kind of, I'm kind of also shocked, I'm out of it. So it's not self-love maybe, but something that I learned or I heard, or it's there in the memories or something that I need to, I need to make sure that it's happening, kind of, something has to confirm, but it's not needed.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So, how to make a context that might be helpful for you to have a feeling for and or understand how these movements fit in or derive from or emerge from the work or the Gurdjieff work or Bennett's work. And I think we have 4 observations here, one of which is not from the movements, at least one. But that doesn't matter if it's from the movements or not, because Gurdjieff and Bennett weren't talking about movements only. They were talking about life and the inner life in one's own life. And one of the things Gurdjieff said is that we count in twos. We always count in twos. I like or I dislike. I'm attracted or I'm repulsed. I approve of or I disapprove of. So, if I see something I like, I want more of it. If I see something I dislike, in myself even, I want less of it. And this often leads, or if I see something I like that is not in me, I want it in me. All of that has this quality and this sound of a polarity, of counting in twos, that however I am is not sufficient. Something needs to change. I want to change. And totally, this is an understandable impulse. Bennett spoke about it in a particular way. And Bennett's way of speaking is very schematic, a bit cognitive and intellectual. What he said about this energy of wanting to change is that it has this stickiness. It's always sticky. And he called it sensitive energy. Sensitive energy related to what he called, pardon me about all the labels, later maybe we put them on a board if anybody's interested, related to the part of a person called the reactive self. Part of a self, but a reactive self. And this sensitive energy leads us to have these stories about ourselves that help us to feel calmed, even though they might be saying, we must change. I'm not good enough, I must become better. Oh, I'm filled with so much ego, I must become more humble. And even in the stories we just heard, 2 in particular, 3 possibly, there's this tone of, I fall this way or that way. There are these other moments when I'm more present. You could hear that in the stories, right? So if for a moment we come back to, is it true? Is there? Are we not in touch with something about reality that would be shocking? What would happen if I woke up and realized my time was limited? Or that there is no time? Would I change? Or would I transform? So, what is change? If change is what is the impulse within me, it would be to feel better about yourself when you're playing terrible.
But it's not change.
And to feel not so inflated when you're sounding beautiful, right? To wish to be other than the way one is. Yeah? To have this sense when someone goes like that in front of you, you use the word, I think, forgive. Yeah. I wish to be a forgiving person, right? But actually, I'm upset. I'm not being treated with consideration. I'm a person who deserves to be considered. Yes. And then we say something to ourselves, which is, I should forgive. Yeah. And it tends to be counting in twos, this or that. All right. In the context of this idea that we're unaware of something very important because we're not as clearly awake as we could be, change making something shift inside oneself, is nothing other than moving the chairs about on the deck of the Titanic. Is that a metaphor that you can relate to? If the ship is going down, I want a better view. Doesn't do much good. If I'm self-inflated, I want to be less inflated. If I'm self-negating, I wish to be filled with positivity about myself. From the point of view of what Bennett spoke about, the efforts made on this level of sensitive energy in reactive self are what most of psychology and most of the efforts even within the work and for those who seek consist of. They see something and they want to flip it to the other thing. And very little moves, very little shifts in a qualitative way. The story might change, but the energetics of the life stay contained within this a conscribed area of qualities of energy. He called it sensitive energy. So some people say, this is not the level I wish to be on. I don't wish to have these likes and dislikes any longer. I want to be free of that. And that can lead to what sometimes people call a spiritual bypass. Right? You want to jump out of that. It's like grabbing yourself by the feet and saying, I'll lift myself right up. And what Bennett said was, you cannot use the energy of that terrain to transform the energy of that terrain. And Gurdjieff said, we need to learn to count in threes. Something new or different has to occur. And I think it presents us with an issue that is it presents me with an issue that is very daunting. And the daunting element of that is that it means showing up and staying present and allowing the experience of what I like or what I don't like to continue and to bear it. To be present with what is counting in threes. One way of defining counting in threes. So there's an element about myself. I don't like it. It arises. And I be present with it. Something comes up in myself and I'm inflated. I think you said in movement sometimes you might think, oh, I'm doing good. Maybe I'm better than others. Yeah? And this counting in threes would say, stay with that. Be with that. Be present with that. Because it very easily could be, oh, that's a snotty, nasty thing to think. I want to be more humble. And you want to change. Or you revel in it and you're stuck to it. It's counting in twos either way. So how do we stay with and be present with? Bennett says two things. One, before you give up on transformation being possible, realize that having a reactive self, this gift of sensitive energy that drives all of this internal liking and disliking and loathing and self-inflation, he called it, it's the fuel for transformation. It's actually the fuel for transformation. So, disliking, having a part that dislikes, is still staying in the level of counting in twos. And so for whoever Bennett worked with, he would say, "Oh, you, such a big head you have, filled with ideas of your own wonderfulness. This is perfect for your work. You loathe yourself. You feel like you always should be last. And when you're second in line for food, you feel like somehow you're cheating because you belong in back." And he would say to them, "This is perfect for your work." And the gift of having a reactive nature, a reactive self, or this gift of sensitive energy, is that whoever you are, as you find and see yourself, is perfect for transformation. It's the perfect fuel for your path of transformation. That is really a gift. To me, it was to hear. Of course, I was very quickly changing that into, oh, I can change. Maybe I can get transformed. Right? And it moves back down into the level of sensitive energy. And now I'm attached to it. And in the work, sometimes you'll hear people speak about this. It's called second sleep, or having work personality. You're asleep, you're living your life, suddenly you sniff something about your life and you go, I bet there's something more to this life than the way I'm living. And you start seeking. And it's very odd when that occurs. Then suddenly it's like books that have always been there are jumping off the shelf. And people you've always been around are somehow intriguing in a way you hadn't noticed before. And you find a path. The difficulty then is to not let that degenerate back down into, now I have a new story about myself. I'm a spiritual person and I'm transformed, I'm changing. It's okay to be transforming, but if it's story, it's probably sticky. If it's sticky, it's probably on the level of sensitive energy. And you could hear in what was said in the examples, what Bennett would call conscious energy, which he associates with, pardon the language again, the divided self, is a freedom. There's a freedom, an element of seeing and freedom in it that allows you to bear and stay with whatever it is you're seeing come up. So far, makes some sense?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. There's another expression, that the higher blends with the lower to create the middle. Alchemists spoke about this. But certainly Gurdjieff spoke about this as well. So, if sensitive energy is available to us, like, if I think of something right now, it would be like, this cushion doesn't really fit my ass perfectly. I'm a little upset with the cushion. I could be more comfortable. Would a second cushion be better, or no cushion? Should I get, where's vasanti? She needs better cushions. Or this kind of stickiness that occurs. Is a gift to us because automatic energy, Bennett's term, we don't need to think about how to digest our food. We don't need to tell the diaphragm how to contract and expand. Much works on the level of automatism and works wonderfully. But when automatic energy is touched by conscious energy, sensitive energy results. So the higher conscious blends with the automatic, and we are the recipients, and we're able to live a life imbued with sensitive energy, which is the gift. It could be the fuel for our transformation. Reactive self. And then Bennett said, what is this about divided self? And when he meant divided, he said divided, he meant part of it is caught and part of it gives a glimmer of what's possible if transformation were to occur. Or almost as if part of it is animal and part of it is angelic. And we're divided. So part of us is attached and part of us is free. If that can occur simultaneously, then creative energy has blended with sensitive energy and a bit of consciousness has been released. It was in your story, it was in your story, it was in your story. Not sure I heard it in what you were saying. Yeah. So all that's a lot of words, yeah? And some of it is technical in the sense that it's Bennett speaking about different selves, reactive self, divided self. He talks about it in terms of energies, automatic energy, sensitive energy, conscious energy. And then he spoke about creative energy. And the true self. So no longer just does conscious energy blend with automatic to generate sensitive, or creative energy blend with sensitive to generate conscious, but creative energy, unitive energy blends with conscious energy to generate creative energy, or true self. His way of speaking about it. Why is this important, or is it important? The difficulty in terms of the work, or the way forward with this, is if I know what my impediments are, this comes back to what you were talking about in the opening circle. If I know what my allies and internal friends are, and I know what my impediments and my obstacles are, what did Gurdjieff mean when he said, bearing is a measure of your being? What you can bear is a measure of your being.
Yeah.
Bear?
That means if you can confront with your enemies and you can bear with them, it's your being can
Yes.
come out of it.
Also your friends.
Also,
Because if the friends or the enemies are the sticky part, yeah, you show up and be with. And the daunting element in that is that there's a kind of pain involved in the seeing of that which I would, on a different level, have be different, other than it is. To bear with what can't change, but may have the possibility of transforming, is difficult to bear. Because really I wish it would change. Yeah. And when he began to speak about unitive energy, he also connected it with sacred impulse. That which can be of assistance to us, that is not in our power, that is not in our power. And for that level of energetics to be available to me, I need to bear showing up and being with that which I would rather simply change and be done with. The capacity to stay with and bear allows for the opportunity of something vaster or greater or more divine or higher to touch the self or the psyche or the being and assist it to become transformed, not changed. I don't know if I'm conveying that well. It means I need to allow what I take to be my being to cook. I have to bear. Roberto Assagioli was a student of Carl Jung's and not involved with this work that I know of, a spiritual path other than what he developed on his own and through his work with Jung. And he said so many psychotherapists and therapists talk about the repression of sexual impulse, the repression of aggressive impulse, the repression and suppression of the unconscious. And he said, we work internally just as hard, just as assiduously to repress the sublime. Because anything that enters this realm of sensitive energy disrupts it. It changes it. We say we wish for the influx of the divine to occur, but your entire life might get upset. Everything might turn upside down. And that can be great. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. But we're built for stasis. We're built to survive 30,000 years on the savannah, and we needed to have a circumscribed life to make sure we saw the saber-toothed tiger coming across. We couldn't just always be open to the divine. So the body, the psyche, the selves or the self developed to help us stay in a way that made sure we were also safe. Well, now we're pretty safe. Doesn't seem like it. With a world that seems at risk, with so many people, more unfortunate, who seem at risk, with an entire planet, and therefore our own lives at risk, doesn't seem so safe. For myself, I try and bear that pain to help me be more open and not just work to change something, but to see that the quality of transformation that needs to occur is of a different nature than a few powerful people need to have a change of heart or change of mind. Yeah. All right, so let me stop. I want to check with you then. When this idea comes up of bearing, that the measure of one's being is what one can bear, that transformation implies the possibility of a certain type of psychic suffering, because simply showing up and staying with even that which can be of assistance means I have to bear seeing what is negative or I'm stuck to. Does that make sense to you? Sahaja, can you say something about that?
I think it's the experience I made today. I was on a certain point, I realized I can't follow, and I completely blocked, and I was isolated. I couldn't understand anymore what he was saying. And it wanted to go out, I break it up, I don't come back anymore. And I just stared at it, and I just stand there, and the feeling came, and I didn't know what to do. I was just staying with it, staring at it. And from somewhere the voice came like, my body will know. And it's not about learning up here. And suddenly my body was moving, and I didn't get the whole yet, but it was like not a change, it felt like
a shift.
A shift.
Yeah. Even if we don't use the word transformation, it's not change, it's just shift. Yeah. The tonality of that sounds right to me. Yeah? Anyone else?
It was today, I was at a point where I didn't get it, and I didn't understand, not what you were explaining, not the movement. I couldn't even follow the one in front of me, and there was a point when I stood still, and then the piano set in, and before it felt as if I had given up everything, but I also didn't want to leave, so... And then the music was as if it took me, it supported or was very friendly. And suddenly, maybe also you had changed to something more simple, but suddenly it was slow and I could move. So I was very grateful for that. Thank you for the music.
Can you, this is maybe not an easy question. Can you say something about, because you used a word to describe something that occurred internally, can you say more about what grateful is? How did it feel? What is it?
It feels like when I go out of the way. And this gratefulness is this joy that comes by itself. Then.
Sahaja? So a shift. Yeah? It's not, I make joy, I make gratefulness. Yeah. It's a shift. It sounds, if you hear, the others can hear, it sounds like not only just sensitive energy or reactive self being stuck with, oh, I'm so happy, I'm doing better now. But no, a shift, a kind of an element of freedom, yeah, for which one is grateful, of course. Yeah. So I want to take just a few more minutes, to speak a bit about, well, the way Bennett spoke about sacred impulse, and that's the way Gurdjieff spoke about it. But before that, he called it higher emotion, and then he began calling it sacred impulse. It's in Beelzebub's Tales, very hidden, as Gurdjieff will do in the way he writes, particularly in Beelzebub's Tales. And when Bennett spoke about it, he also introduced us to the work that is in many lineages, streams of teachings, everywhere in the world, really. Egypt, Iran, Kuwait, Syria, America, Europe, everywhere, that has to do with the latif. The latif, new word. And so I don't think I will do justice to speaking about it in the way it should or could be spoken about. But sometimes it's referred to as if there is a nest, there are nests within us that can be touched by a more subtle energy. An energy that isn't of our own device or making. Most of the lineages are theistic lineages. In other words, they believe in a God or the divine. Some are not. Some are non-theistic. But nevertheless, they speak about this subtle energies. And the chakra system is often spoken about quite similarly, but the chakra system is usually spoken about as if there's a very discrete location in the body. And this, the way Bennett would speak about it, was a riot to watch him. And if you do your own research and look at the Iranian writings about the latif and compare them with the Egyptian or the Syrian or the Naqshbandi, but in the Naqshbandi, there are various lineages. They argue, they disagree about where they are, these nests in the body. And with each nest, there's sometimes associated with it an angel for each specific nest, a color for each specific nest. But some say, well, there's one here. Another lineage doesn't even mention this place. So all I will share at the moment is what Bennett shared with us. And that was, and the reason it connects to what we're talking about. So what he said was, so you see yourself filled with vanity, filled with self-loathing, numb to your own experience, whatever it is. How can this possibly be perfect for the work? Because what it can give rise to is wish to be. Simple wish for being. And he would go like this. It's located, and he would always close his eyes and go, here. And we were young students and we didn't quite know. And then he would say, well, not in the right breast. Lower. It's somehow lower. Wish. So what does that mean? That means for us, here I am, I'm in a movements class, or maybe I'm eating down below, and I see that I'm trapped, caught, something is very sticky, something you named maybe in the opening circle. What we have presented so far is relax, breathe, sense. It's a good way to work with this. And it's tickling conscious and creative energy if you relax, sense, and breathe. It's tickling the part that says, if you can relax, breathe, and sense, you can stay with whatever it is that's going on. It's kind of beckoning that higher part that he called the divided self. This, though, to tickle or beckon, that which comes from unitive energy is, can I use whatever experience is going on, sense, relax, breathe, and also use this moment to simply wish for being. Not to change, just to have, I know how it's often, it's said to long for being, to have a longing for being. Yeah? Not a longing to change, not a longing for being. Big thing. And then he would say, so the second latifa, and he had ways of articulating it that if you read about it are not specifically the ways that the word is transliterated or translated. He called them latifas. The second one, he would go, it's here. And it's where? I don't know. Mr. Bennett, please, just point, will you? It's here. Hope. He called it hope. And he said, yes, it's somehow associated with the left part of the upper chest, the left breast. And at one point he said, it's kind of the beginning of a kind of release or relief, almost nearly a joy. Maybe there's an inner friend. It's not just longing for being, it's I think more being is possible. Transformation maybe really is possible. And it's hope. You have a hope for being. Wish for being. Hope for being. The third one he called belief or faith. And he would go like this. And it's the upper right part of the breast. And this he called, it's when, if, and I believe it's probably true for everyone here, something has occurred in one's life that seems, the word I'll use is anomalous, outside of normal experience, doesn't seem like something that came from you, maybe. Maybe it was in the presence of a teacher, a master. Maybe it was in the presence of nature. But you know that was not normal experience. And so you have faith. He called it faith. And it bestows a confidence, a kind of confidence that transformation is possible. Wish, longing for being, hope for being, a faith or confidence that more being or transformation is possible. The fourth latifa, somewhere here. And below, he said, the chakra spot. It was kind of like in this area. And he called it acceptance. Another word associated with it was obedience. And the way it could be spoken about is, if longing for being arises or descends or emerges in me, hope for being, hope of transformation begins to be birthed in me. A kind of even a glimmer of confirmation of transformation is possible. Then my dharma, my path, suddenly begins to unfold in front of me. And that's why he said acceptance. Or obedience, because if what is clear is in front of you, there it is for you to follow. And to turn one's back on that is really a big thing. In terms of the derivation of the word sin in its etymological root means missing the mark. So if I turn my back on this wish, longing for being, hope for being, confirmation that it's possible, and I see Dharma, my path in front of me, and turn away, that is really something. But that's not what he emphasized. What he emphasized was, then we can work with acceptance. And that, suddenly you begin to hear, if that begins to emerge in one's moment, this being with what I don't like about myself, or being with what I'm inflated with about myself, it's totally different. And yet that's the fuel that has led to wish, hope, faith, and acceptance, is just the typical life that you lead, perfect as it is. Yes, so far, making sense. You can believe it or not, but making sense. Then the final, the fifth of the 7 latifas he spoke about. The last one that he spoke about having a physical location, he just went like this. And it's love. And I don't know what it means and its real meaning and what it doesn't mean. In Gurdjieff, in Beelzebub's Tales, he speaks again and again about conscience and what conscience is in the human being and what has happened to conscience in human beings and how conscience in Beelzebub's Tales is that which now needs to be rediscovered in humanity. So conscience, love, compassion for oneself. You hear how that can be a tall task. But it's not hard if one is touched by the unitive energy. One would simply then begin loving oneself. Others, the planet, other species, the known, the unknown. It would just emerge and we would be in a sea of love. Yeah. So those are the 5 latifas he spoke about, the lataif, plural, the way he used it, that he spoke about. So I'll say hopefully, one last thing about this. What that presents me with is not just bearing what I see about myself, as if pain is the purpose, as if bearing equals pain or bearing equals suffering. It means bearing opens up the opportunity and possibility of these other elements emerging. And one of the last things then I'll say is that Gurdjieff said, one of the hardest things for humans to sacrifice is their suffering. What a statement. And I know I don't say this to you or you or you because I think this is what is happening for you, but what a statement. It means I would rather stay with that which is onerous and keeps me trapped and constricted than sacrifice it to the unknown because I don't know what would come next. The unknown can be more the terror of the situation. I don't know what would come, and so people stay constricted and stick to their suffering. Certainly we stick to it if we're on the level of reactive self and sensitive energy. That's just the nature of that realm. It's sticky. But what Gurdjieff was saying was, even when presented with opportunity for the emergence of something, and words here are not good, or poet or philosopher, poetry in particular would be better here, of the emergence of divinity or freedom or joy, compassion and love, even then for human beings, it's difficult for them to sacrifice their suffering. That last statement, one of the things for human beings that's most difficult to sacrifice is their suffering. Any comments about that? Because I see some responses. Louder? In case they didn't hear?
No, I said it's true. Because we see it also all around. The way how we behave to our home, to the nature we are. That's what I see with it. So that if I take it to myself.
Good.
For me, a great gateway to acceptance, let's say, was for me the physical difficulties that came through the body, and through bearing that and allowing it actually to go through it, it allowed me to shift, but I could have also stayed there, and I experienced the moments when to kind of fight with it was more comfortable than to allow the shift to happen, because it's familiar. And to kind of stick. Yeah, now actually I get now when I say to stick with it.
Yeah.
Actually explain that stickiness.
Yes. What is sticky? What does he mean by sticky?
Yeah, actually when it sticks, I lost myself, but it has its stick with it because it's familiar. I would just look around in the same familiar pattern over and over and over again, and to actually allow myself not knowing, like today for example, because again of physical condition, I decided I will follow the energy, though I was not sure how you will respond, but I took a risk. And in some point I just thought, okay, I need to sit down. And I allowed the space to open, which actually in some moment when I felt ready, I went back and I picked up from a very different space than what I would if I would struggle and I would be probably really tired, and anyway I wouldn't be able to focus. So somehow that's what resonated.
Okay. Anyone else?
Really, suffering becomes totally our own well-designed own. So
I can't hear, I'm sorry.
Suffering, it is the place where we live inside, really. I mean, that. So to go beyond that requires to go to the third polarity, as you were saying, to really detach from the experience, I suppose. The movement creates, in instability because you can see yourself liking yourself or disliking yourself. There's nothing you can do, and there's nothing that I could do if not just allowing the currents to flow, and therefore the suffering to go. So the non-attachment to the suffering, it's the only thing we can do, I think. But how? Like that. So I was excited to see that through this work, I could actually go to a place where I wasn't expecting. That went beyond what I knew. I don't know if it makes sense, but it was very profound. And the sense of belonging also.
Belonging.
Belonging.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yeah.
For me, in the suffering, there is lots of self-pity also in the suffering. It's kind of, for me, it's kind of staying in the story, attached, stay there in a comfort zone, in a way, knowing. And it's also, in a way, not taking the responsibility and not taking the responsibility to come out or whatever, confronting and taking suffering. There is the pain. I'm really not feeling the pain. There is this drama suffering, not really the feeling the pain. When I'm feeling the pain, then the suffering goes and the pain is there, and the pain, it's something real and it comes out and it goes by itself, but suffering stays because it's the story and it's there. And for me, it's like there's the victimization also inside of the suffering.
Inside of the story?
Inside of the suffering. There's this victimization, and it is kind of really, really, it's like the power is there and, you are helpless in a way, not able to do anything. So it's kind of, it's happened what to do, and the stories goes on and goes on and goes on for years and years and goes on. So it's not really empowering situation for the self, and it's kind of really not taking the responsibility. It's for me like a child situation, not grown up, for me, suffering. So it's in order to be able to come out from the suffering, I really need to confront the pain itself, really, and really take the pain and...
Take the pain means allow it?
Yeah, allow it. Because there I'm just numbing myself and with the idea of suffering, and the pain doesn't come to the body, I'm not feeling it. When I'm feeling the pain, the suffering, the ideas and everything goes. And then the pain is there and the situation is real, whatsoever it is.
Okay, thank you. Any other observations? Yes.
Oh, well, there's a lot. I've been working with many tools and also with the latifa.
I'm sorry.
I've been working with quite a few tools and also with the latifa, and we could have a laugh and kind of, compassion is red for you, acceptance is pink, hope is green or not, but this is not really the process now. So it helped me really to find out about essential qualities, but it didn't help me really to transform or to reach some more freedom. So just thinking right now, I realize that there is another very interesting point. It's the Enneagram, and I realize that the really more specific suffering for me is really to be excluded or not be part of. And it's a terror, it's a horrible despair, and it's a fight at the same time to belong, And it just, happened for many years, this thing and being excluded, shouting in groups, being excluded, and then wanting to be accepted again. And so it's wonderful what happened, the first day, thank you very much for, having, But it's basically a situation of life that put me into a position of being really in the center and finding out that I can be with my power and still accepted. And this made really the transformation. So I understand that there's preparation, that you work with tools, you work with understanding, you work with becoming conscious, but it's life really kind of bringing to you the situation. And if I'm able to accept really what life brings and try to do my best out of it, that's really going to create the liberation somehow.
Okay, thank you.
And in your latifa structure, do you speak a point of light?
Point of light.
Point of light.
Light.
This comes from Semnani, actually, the Latifa teaching, come from Sufi teacher Semnani from the 12th century. And it speaks from also the main thing is the point of light, because the point of light includes all the information about who you really are. And
different phrase. And maybe today or tomorrow we work with something and you can see if it sounds like it's related or not. Yeah.
I have a question to the sticking to the suffering. I noticed that I worked in several ways, meditation or therapy or whatever, and I noticed that whenever I fall in automatics, like not being aware in automatics in work life or whatever, the old shit is there and I live it. And the new never gets automatic, never. So, and is this sticking to the suffering?
That's the question. Yeah.
Also when I'm stressed out, when I don't do care enough for that I'm in a good energy or my body is in a good, even gets what it needs, then I slip into behavior patterns which I thought were really worn out, but they're not.
Yeah, old patterns that maybe you thought had you gone beyond. Two ways to respond. I'm sure many people could say very good things in response, but two things occur. And one is that it is good that a large part of life occurs automatically. And so these habits, we do just fall back into them. It's just unfortunate that some of them are painful or too inflated, but that's the piece in that zone where Bennett was saying, this is good. Because it creates the opportunity for transformation. It's just not good because we're stuck to it. And so he would say, this is not a bad thing that you find in your life, that you fall back into this. It happens. It just happens. The second part, though, is if there's enough resilience internally, and there's not always enough, the opportunity can be taken at that moment to say, I simply long for being. I have a longing for being in this moment. Instead of, I wish it weren't like this. Yeah. Or I thought this was over. Because that's all shifting chairs on the deck of the Titanic. Yeah. Yeah. But that takes a certain glimmer still to be able to come, to go, this is one of those moments where I could long for being, or have hope of being. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Also, when he talked about sacrificing suffering, he didn't say the hardest thing for humans to do is struggle with suffering. Yeah? And in the work, there's a lot said about struggling with oneself. A lot. It's not seen as a negative thing to do, to set oneself in opposition to what one finds. But this is to generate data, information about what it's like to live in this realm of sensitive, reactive self. Sacrifice, in Bennett's terminology, is an act of will. It's an act of freedom, of clarity. It's a decision. It's not hard. It's done. When it's done, it's simply done. So how can the thing that is absolutely simply able to be done also be the thing that he says is the hardest thing for people to do? Yeah. And that's why I mentioned what Assagioli said about repressing the sublime. Because all we maybe need to do is go, maybe I won't fight you so hard. But that also means to our unconscious or subconscious, and also our reactive nature, I won't fight you so hard. Opportunity. You know, if you two met, I bet good things would happen.
It's so good to see it as fuel.
Huh?
It's so good to see that as fuel on that level.
Exactly. That I'm telling you, I don't know. I know I say too many words. If I could say, coming away from Sherborne after a 10-month retreat with the gift of, God damn it, this thing that I have been struggling against is actually fuel for my internal transformation, and I have had it up to here with it. My entry, I'll get a little personal now. My entry into beginning to sit zazen and do meditation was because I wanted to commit suicide. But I didn't want to hurt this animal. It wasn't this poor little animal. This animal had caused no harm to anyone. How can I kill this thing? Maybe I can stop this fucking rat race inside my and here. So I began going. I was looking for a spiritual bypass, right? Just beam me up, Scotty. Yeah. But it helped me because I had a good meditation teacher that would say, so what came up for you? And it was like, you stay with that. And it's like, I don't want to stay with that. Yeah. So anyway, it's not struggle. What's the difference between struggle and sacrifice? Yeah. Movements ask so much struggle. It does. It asks you to struggle. Why? Because struggling is good? No. Not just for struggle. Not just so you have more cardiovascular fitness. No, it's because it generates these opportunities. What do I see about myself? What do I see about myself? And now what do I do? How do I bear and be with what I see? And that's involved with other people on the floor. And what's this other phrase Gurdjieff said? What does it mean to bear the unpleasant manifestations of others? He said this was a great gift. Doesn't feel like it sometimes. Yeah. When my daughter is unhappy with me and upset with me, can I go inwardly? I'm grateful for the compassion and love that I know you have for me, that I know I have for you, that you're a being on this earth that has a destiny. No, not all the time. Yeah. Sometimes I'm just fucking pissed off. And then I'm trapped in this little world. And I want to change. And then I'm caught. I want to be a better daddy. That kind of thing. And it goes round and round. And that leads to this terrible expression of Gurdjieff's, of then man dies like a dirty dog.
What?
Then man dies like a dirty dog. All right, you just go round and round, and other people have kind of almost said that expression, but not quite, when they're giving their observations. I could just stay in this level. Yeah. So I think that's enough by far for now. Do you have anything else you wish to contribute so the others can hear it? Do you wish to say something? Anybody?
So, as we speak about suffering, from the Gurdjieffian point of view, or how to work with it, I'm thinking of the Buddhist point of view. And
Can you hear?
Yeah.
the Buddhist point of view. And I'm trying to reconcile the different kind of mental context. Because, as I understand it, from what the Buddha said, to some degree, well, life is suffering, which I think is considered in this translation, but let's just leave it at that. Because things arise and they pass, and they arise and they pass, and we cling. The problem is that we cling. The suffering is caused by the clinging, which I see as what you're referring to as the stickiness. And we cling to, I'm a jerk because I can't do this movement. Or we cling to, I'm beautiful when I do this movement. But as far as I understand it, in the Buddhist context, we are not trying to transform the suffering. Is that too far out of the question?
No, I can respond. I don't know that I respond well or well informed. But I'm very personally intrigued by these teachings, this stream of massive lineages, so many that are theistic and talk about the divine, and those that are non-theistic. Yeah. So the Buddhists, for instance, would talk about anatta. No self. Impermanence, but no self. And then you've got Bennett. Reactive self, divided self, true self, self. Yeah? And Jung talking about the individuation of the self. Yeah? And then the Buddha and Buddhists, not all, but some, saying it can be a non-theistic path. And when it says no self, it doesn't mean there's nothing. It means that everything really is temporal and related. Yeah. Contingent upon everything else. So I think there's really interesting possible ways. So then in what way can the maps overlap? And my only way at the moment to respond is my limited understanding of the etymological root of dukkha, of suffering, is, which you know what I'm going to say, is the axle in a wheel, if it doesn't fit well, it just rattles, and that's dukkha. We don't fit well. What is it? What doesn't fit well? I think there's a connection between not fitting well and counting in twos. I need to change. If I need to change, I must not fit well. So I'm going to make myself fit better. That's still not fitting well. That's dukkha. And if I'm attached to needing to change, I'm still attached. So the freedom What I would want to speak with somebody more informed or advanced than I am is this linear connection between the verbiage of the teachings, between the qualities of transformation, but I can even say some things about it, and the qualities of enlightenment. And if you hear the Dalai Lama speak, if you hear Thich Nhat Hanh speak, they speak about compassion for all beings, awareness of the interdependence of all beings, near and far, known and unknown, friend and foe. It means I'm willing to be with my friend, my foe, the unknown and the known can be things I don't like. So I think there's a place where there's an overlap, and then I think there's a place where a person can kind of try and have both paths, or kind of chooses, and Bennett, I don't know how real this is, he spoke about a division between northern schools of Sufism and southern, one which was oriented toward union with God, and one that was oriented toward freedom. In other words, freedom even from God. I'm not claiming anything of knowledge internally or experientially about this. I'm just saying that lineage could be closer to the Buddhist, the one that was less oriented toward divinity. If you look at divinity, union with, because there's ones that speak more about impartiality and freedom. Not detachment, you use the word detachment, but rather immersion and being with, but free at the same time. That's the axle fitting in the wheel. Yeah, and I think that that idea in Buddhism of to be detached, because that's us trying to be detached from that we don't like, and it's an attempt for a spiritual bypass. Yeah. So I don't know what type of response that is, but that's all at the moment. Yeah. The limited amount I've read, and you probably know what I've read and what I haven't read, the way states are described are very similar. And the verbiage around it is different. And that's why I mentioned the Dalai Lama and Thich Nhat Hanh, and it's very similar. Lastly,
there are little thing I don't know if I know enough about Buddha, but the similarity I see in the possibility of choosing. Choosing. Free choice. We have in Christianity this idea of free will. Yeah. And actually the choice is, do I choose really myself, my essential self, or do I choose the conditioning and not the real self? And as I understand, Buddhism has nothing to do, doesn't say anything about transformation. It's more psychology working with transformation, things like that. It's basically because of the lack of information that we seek through this outer personality and became blind to that essential being we are. So, essence is perfect. We are perfect. Essence is perfect.
Okay.
So nothing to control. It's about revealing, allowing it to be revealed.
I mean,
And this
thank you.
Fits with Gurdjieff or not? This idea fits with idea of Gurdjieff, with the teaching of Gurdjieff.
When you say the idea, help me here.
That it's just about essence, the perfection of the being we are, the essential being, has just to be allowed to reveal. And this needs a work.
Yeah, and this needs a work. That's the important part. Once you add that, I could say that can fit pretty well with Gurdjieff. Because you said emergence, and it sounded like it would just emerge. So yes, I think so. Yeah, and maybe we'll take less time, but maybe tomorrow we have a little talk about different lines of work, the way different lines of work were expressed in the Gurdjieff lineage through Bennett. Yeah. Because it takes work. Yeah. But some of them were receptive lines of work. So not all buff, struggle. All right, I think that's enough. Unless someone has something to say.
Well, the thing that came to me as we talk is basically a relation between blueprint, which is the true self, and the imprint, which is the sticky part. And the struggle is the identification with the imprint.
Great.
Which is basically the picture on the blank page.
Great. Yeah. Where does the blueprint come from? Good one. And there you have the two schools. Right?
Yeah. And around it is different lineages trying to reach there.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay. Yes.
It was very clear now. The two schools with this example. Made clear.
Her statement.
Yes.
Yeah. Good. Thank you. Yeah. Good. All right. What time is it?
4:30.
20 to 5. And this time period goes until 5:30, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. All right. So all we need is a 50-minute break. And then, no, I'm kidding. Okay, so how about a 15-minute break? Now, but what are we going to do with all of this yakety yak that I just did? All of the talking that just occurred, all of the stimulation of ideas that might have occurred, anywhere from I just learned something to I just understood something to oh my God, I'm so bored to whatever it is that occurred within you. How do we contain all of the energy, all of the energetics?
Multiplication? Multiplication?
No, I mean during the break. Together you would take a break multiplying out. So someone suggests, given the exercises even that we've worked with so far, what would be a good way to both allow yourselves to be who you are and yet also to be with all of this stimulation that occurred?
For me, it would be to be in silence, and I would go to the big hibiscus flower where this little green grasshopper was sitting in. Like that.
Yeah. So the way I'm hearing that is silence and contact with nature. Yeah. Any objections? So it sounds like we come back at
5 to 5.
5 to 5 or 5? You said 5 first. I think he said 5.
Yes.
Okay, 5.
And then he made a mistake. He said 5 to 5.
Well, you said 15 minutes.
I know, but I liked how you said 5. It sounded like it came from your true self.
Okay.
Emphasizing 5.
So we come back at 5. Silent, unless some business has to transact, I think, with vasanti and contact with nature. Thank you very much for saying that.